I will never forget what happened between my stepmom and my dad's nephew even now. I'm still in disbelief and can't fathom that they both did that. It was as if they acted like they owned the pool and assumed no one was watching. Our family is wealthy, and I can say that with confidence. We live in a large house, own fancy cars, and I have all the toys I could ever wish for. But with all this wealth comes a deep sadness. A few years ago, we lost my mom in a tragic accident. I remember that day vividly, and it still brings me pain. Losing her was the hardest thing our family had to endure, and it felt like the happiness was drained from our lives. After my mom's death, my dad changed. He was often sad, and I could see how much he missed her. Then one day he told me he wanted to remarry, explaining that it was what my mom would have wanted for him. I wasn't sure how he could know that. It felt odd thinking about someone else entering our lives, someone who might take my mom's place in his heart. My dad eventually married Clarice, a 42-year-old woman who I thought was quite attractive. She had long, wavy hair that shimmered in the sunlight, and a warm smile that made everyone feel welcome. From the start, she treated me like her own child, cooking my favorite meals, helping with my homework, and even taking me out for ice cream. I genuinely believed she had good intentions with my dad, and I was happy to see him smile again after my mom passed. Initially, everything seemed ideal. Clarice would share stories from her childhood, and I enjoyed listening to them. It felt like we were starting to form a real family. Even though my dad was always busy with work, when Clarice was around, the house was full of laughter and fun. I began to feel comfortable with her and started to believe that just maybe we could have a happy family once more. I wanted to believe that everything would be all right. However, things changed drastically one day when I noticed something unusual. I saw Clarice getting unusually close to my dad's nephew, Martin, during a family gathering. At first I thought they were just talking, but then I realized it was more than that. They were laughing and whispering to each other, like they were sharing secrets. My heart sank as I felt both confused and hurt. I didn't want to believe that Clarice would do something to hurt my dad, and it made me question everything I thought I knew about her. But things took an even worse turn when they were at the pool. It all began one sunny afternoon, when my dad wanted us to enjoy a family meal by the pool. We set up a large table with colorful plates and plenty of delicious food. The sun was shining brightly and the water sparkled like diamonds. We were all having a fantastic time, laughing and playing in the pool. Then my dad remembered Uncle Martin and decided to invite him over. To my surprise, Uncle Martin arrived quickly, bringing even more food to share. We continued having a good time playing games in the pool, and everything seemed perfect. I watched my dad and Uncle Martin laughing together, and I felt genuinely happy to be with my family. We took turns diving into the pool, and I was having so much fun that I forgot about my worries regarding Clarice. For a moment, I even thought that maybe we were finally becoming a true family. The day was filled with joy, and I cherished every moment with my loved ones. However, everything changed when my dad's phone suddenly rang. "Hello," he answered, and I saw the smile on his face fade a little. "All right, I'll be there right away," he said. I could tell something was wrong. There was an emergency at work, and my dad had to leave. As much as he wanted to stay, he couldn't. A knot formed in my stomach as I realized our fun day was about to end. "I'll leave you here for a bit, Martin. Stay and maybe rest," my dad said with a smile. "Jake, look after the house for me, okay?" he added, ruffling my hair gently. I nodded, trying to be brave and show him. I understood, even though I felt sad to see him leave. I didn't mind that he had to go for work. I knew he was doing his best to provide for us, even if it meant leaving in the middle of our family gathering. After he left, I felt a strange rumble in my stomach. I decided to head to the restroom, because all the delicious food we'd eaten was making my stomach feel unsettled. As I walked away, I didn't give much thought to leaving Uncle Martin and Clarice alone. By the pool, my mind was entirely focused on trying to feel better. I just wanted to get through the discomfort and hoped it would pass. Soon after washing my hands, I started making my way back to the pool area, but what I saw when I returned left me in shock. Uncle Martin and Clarice were standing very close together, whispering, "Let's not do it here," Clarice said quietly, her voice low and secretive. "Jake might come back soon." My heart began to race. I felt confused and a little scared. What were they talking about? I didn't like the idea of them having secrets, especially when I was supposed to be part of the family fun. I stepped back slightly, hoping to hear more of their conversation. Without them noticing I was there, "We can just do it quickly." Then Uncle Martin replied, and my stomach dropped. I felt like I had stumbled into a scene from a scary movie, and I was the only one who didn't know what was happening. I wanted to yell at them to stop, but was afraid to ruin everything. My mind was spinning with questions. What were they planning to do? Why were they whispering like that? Standing there, I felt incredibly uneasy. I knew something wasn't right and wanted to protect my family, but I didn't know how to intervene. I felt so small and powerless. I took a deep breath and thought about my dad, wishing he were there to help me figure out what was going on. Instead, I was alone, unsure of what to do next. My heart was pounding as I debated whether to stay hidden or confront them. Then Clarice turned toward Uncle Martin, and I noticed something odd. Her hand was in the pool, moving back and forth in a way that made me feel uneasy. At first, I thought she might just be playing in the water, but then I saw how Uncle Martin was looking at her, and my heart raced. It felt like I was witnessing something I didn't want to be part of. Uncle Martin looked so pleased, clearly enjoying whatever my stepmom was doing. He seemed to be having a great time. While I was left watching something that felt incredibly wrong, I wanted to look away to forget it was happening, but I couldn't tear my eyes from them. As I stood there, my eyes widened. In realization, my worst fears were unfolding right before me. A whirlwind of emotions hit me: anger, confusion, and sadness. I couldn't believe that Clarice, who was supposed to be part of my family and take care of us, was acting this way with Uncle Martin. It felt like a betrayal, leaving me unsure of who I could trust anymore. I always love when you do that. Uncle Martin said, his eyes closed and a big smile on his face. He looked so relaxed, while Clarice continued playing with his package in the pool. To my surprise, they suddenly started kissing. It was like they were in their own little world, enjoying themselves, while I stood there in shock as they indulged in this cold, sweet kissing. Clarice kept toying with Uncle Martin's package, acting carefree while Uncle Martin seemed to relish every moment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Can I put it in your mouth now?" Uncle Martin asked, his face turning red. Hearing that made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. My heart raced as I realized how wrong everything was. I wanted to shout to let them know I was there, but I felt frozen, torn between confronting them and not wanting to believe what I was hearing. Then Clarice replied, "But Jake could come back any minute," her voice filled with worry, yet it didn't stop her from continuing. "Don't worry about him," Uncle Martin said confidently. "He has a stomach ache and won't be back. For a while, we'll be done by then." I couldn't believe they thought I was still in the bathroom. It was like they had no idea I was standing right outside, listening to everything. My mind raced as I processed what was happening. They were having fun, completely unaware that I could hear their plans. It felt like I had stumbled into a secret world I wasn't meant to see. I didn't want to believe that my stepmom and uncle could be acting like this, especially in our home where we were supposed to feel safe. I couldn't wrap my head around it. My stepmom, Clarice, was doing exactly what Uncle Martin wanted. She dove underwater, and to my shock, she began eating Uncle Martin's package. His face lit up with joy, like he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. And now that it was happening, he couldn't hide his excitement. "Clarice," Uncle Martin shouted, his voice echoing around the pool. When my stepmom surfaced from the water, she looked annoyed. "Hey, you're being too loud. I can hear you even underwater," she said. I watched as Uncle Martin's face flushed with embarrassment. After being scolded, it was strange to see him like that, especially since he usually acted so sure of himself. But Clarice didn't seem to mind. She continued what she was doing, focusing on making him happy. Then Uncle Martin lowered his voice, trying to be more discreet. Clarice, Clarice, it's coming. My package is about to release its liquid," he said urgently. My stepmom must have known what was about to happen, because she started moving even faster. When they were done, you would think that was the end of it. But I was wrong. Instead of stopping, Uncle Martin said something even more surprising. "Can I stick my package to your buns?" he asked with a sly grin. Clarissa's eyes widened in shock and her voice went up. "What, you're going too far? Jake might catch us," she said, clearly worried. I couldn't believe they were still pushing their luck, knowing I could come back at any moment. It started to dawn on me that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened between them. It felt like they had been keeping this awful secret from my dad for a long time, using his trust and kindness against him. Instead of being thankful, they were betraying him in the worst way. My stomach turned as I realized how deeply they had lied to my dad. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could they treat my dad like this, after everything he had done for them? He had always been so good to Clarice, treating her like royalty. He trusted Uncle Martin, never suspecting he could do something so low. It pained me to think that the people my dad cared about were laughing behind his back, while pretending to be loyal and loving. "Why are you scared of him?" my uncle asked, his tone now angry. My heart raced because I never expected him to say something like that. "I could silence that kid right now if I wanted to." He threatened, his voice cold and sharp. Hearing those words sent chills down my spine, and goosebumps covered my arms. I was terrified because I realized Uncle Martin was serious. He was willing to use violence to get his way, and that thought made my stomach twist in knots. Clarice didn't respond. It was like she was frozen, unsure of what to do instead of standing up to Uncle Martin. She turned away and faced the other side of the pool. I watched her bend down slightly, like she was reaching for something at the bottom of the water. I could see the tension in her shoulders and the worry on her face. It was clear that she felt trapped, caught between what Uncle Martin wanted and the fear of what might happen if she didn't go along with it. But then her worry seemed to shift to a strange kind of excitement as Uncle Martin started moving back and forth. He pressed his package against Clarice's buns, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Clarice!" "It's always something new when we do this," he exclaimed, his voice full of joy. His enthusiasm was so loud it made my heart race. I was torn because part of me wanted to look away, but another part of me was curious about what was happening. Meanwhile, Clarice seemed fully caught up in the moment. She was so obedient to Uncle Martin that all she could do was let out small squeals of joy. "Oh, Martin, this feels incredible!" she shouted, as if swept up in the excitement and unaware of how wrong it all felt. When they finally finished, Uncle Martin and Clarice got out of the pool, acting as if everything was perfectly normal. They pretended to be hungry, which only made me more suspicious. I wanted to figure out what was really going on, so I timed my return carefully. As I walked back outside, I saw them drying off and trying to look casual, but I could sense something was off. "Jake, what took you so long?" my stepmom asked, her voice tinged with worry. She was looking at me closely, and I couldn't tell if she was genuinely concerned about my stomachache, or if she was anxious that I had discovered what they had been doing. I felt a knot in my stomach as I scrambled for an answer. I didn't want to give anything away, so I shrugged and said I was just feeling a little queasy. I hoped that explanation would satisfy her curiosity and stop her from asking more questions. As I stood there, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. I really wanted to tell my dad what was going on, but I was scared. Uncle Martin seemed ruthless, and I knew he would do whatever it took to get what he wanted. I couldn't help but wonder how he would react if I told my dad the truth. Would he get angry? Would he try to hurt me or my dad? These thoughts made me feel trapped, and I didn't know what to do, so I chose to stay silent about my stepmom and Uncle Martin. It was a difficult decision, but I thought it was safer this way. I didn't want to put my dad in danger, or make things worse than they already were. Every time I thought about their secret meetings, I felt sick. I had no idea when they might do it again, and that uncertainty filled me with anxiety. I knew I couldn't let my dad hear the truth from anyone else. It had to come from me, but for now, I decided to keep their secret. Even though I knew deep down that I couldn't keep it forever, I just hoped that I would find the right time to tell my dad everything. When it felt safe to do so,